Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of St. Louis. Hello, my name is Jan Herzog, and I'm a member and a worship assistant. I'm glad you could join us this morning. If you're a visitor or a newcomer, please, we'd like to extend a special welcome. And if you are new to our church, our congregation today, please be sure to fill out a newcomer form. Those can be found in the live stream or in the lobby of the church. After the service, you're invited downstairs for coffee, donuts, and fellowship. If you're attending online, you can connect with each other in the chat. And don't forget, the link for virtual coffee hour can be found in your weekly e-news. We especially want to welcome families with children. You can connect with Danielle Kozumchek, Director of Religious Education, for information about our religious education programs for children and youth, or click the link in your description. Later in the service, there's an opportunity to share personal joys and sorrows. You can submit yours via the online form. You can find the link in your order of service in the live stream description, or simply aim your smartphones at the QR codes around the sanctuary. There's several announcements this morning. The LGBTQ plus advocacy and affinity group is meeting here today at 11:30 in the Dotson room. The First Unitarian Church of St. Louis, the second announcement is the First Unitarian of St. Louis has a TikTok channel. Sorry, that is exclamation point after that. That's what's written. One of the best ways to grow our community is to share our stories. You can help out by sending a 1 minute or less video telling everyone who you are and why you are you. See the e-news for how to submit your video to our AV technician and digital media coordinator, Mo Hurst. Third announcement, like I said, there's a lot of them, so I think to keep them coordinated, I'm going to just number them. The third one is the Unfish Fry is coming. Our annual public vegetarian fish fry will be Friday, February 23rd, and we need your help. There are lots of ways to help, from cooking at church to baking at home, from selling tickets to washing dishes and cleaning up. Please join the fun. Being part of the Unfish Fry crew is a great way for new or long-term members to get to know people. See the e-news for sign up. I think this is the fourth announcement. Adult RE kicks off this week. On Wednesday, a 4-session program on the UUA principles and the proposed revision engages you in the proposed Article 2, which will be voted on General Assembly 2024. Sessions are 90 minutes every other Wednesday, starting February 7th. See the e-news for more information. Okay, I'm going to stop counting them now because now I lost track. Okay, Thursday, we might be toward one of the last ones, but okay. Thursday, join Toward Justice. We have a lot going on here, which is so great, and so many people participating. Thursday, join Toward Justice for Gimme Shelter, which is, I think, the name of a nonprofit that is spelled, it's just all together one word, Gimme, Gimme, shelter. No, that's not a nonprofit. It's just the name of their discussion group. a 4-session discussion series to understand more deeply the scope of housing insecurity in our region, including its intersections with gender, race, and class, the barriers to change from individual to system level, and avenues for change from policy to direct service. All sessions will be virtual. So I think that is not the name of a nonprofit. I'm sorry, that's a correction. It's the name of their discussion group. See the e-news for more information. Welcome to this religious community where we affirm the dignity and freedom for all who enter. Here we seek to live together in relationship and respect so we may embrace and celebrate our differences. Our religious values invite us to a shared journey of truth and meaning. Sincerity and connection guide our religious community and call us into deeper association with ourselves and our world. Welcome. We're glad you are part of our community this morning, or we are glad you're part of our community this morning. Now please enjoy Sonata 6, Fugue by Felix Mendelssohn, performed by our music director, Earl Naylor.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Kim Mason. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I serve this congregation as your minister. Our theme for the month of February is justice and equity. And today, we observe the midpoint between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Yay! The shortest days of the year are behind us. I call us into worship with words from Ben Sewell. As the wild wind bites, so does the flame warm us. As the snow blocks our doors, so does the flame bring us out. As the crackling air stops our breath, so does the flame draw from us the words we need to give and receive. Words of greeting, words of comfort, words of solace, words to challenge our minds, and words to bring us to action. Let us celebrate our common fire so that we remember who we are and what we can do when we are together. Come, let us worship. I invite you to rise as you are willing and able and join in our hymn of the month, number 124, Be That Guide.
Today's chalice reading comes from Tracy Johnson. We light our chalice this morning. Light of our creative spirits, light of our wise souls, light of our wondering and curious minds, light of love for this place, this people, this work. Illuminate our hearts and the spaces between them in this sacred time of unfolding. Blessed be.
My name is Danielle Kazumchuk, and I am the Director of Religious Education and Church Communications, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am going to do the story for all ages today, so if anybody wants to come up front, even if you're not a child, you can be a child at heart. Today's story is called How Brigid Got Lands for the Poor by Erica Helm Mead. It's a Celtic pagan story from Ireland, and it is from a book of wisdom tales that Erica Mead wrote. And it is about, it is connected to the holiday Imbolc because it has Celtic origins. Imbolc is a holiday that falls on February 1st, and as Reverend Kim was saying, it marks the halfway point between winter solstice and spring equinox. In ancient Ireland, this holiday was connected to the goddess Brigid. Whoa, I'm getting a lot of feedback. You can see Brigid on your left side. And she served as the goddess of poetry, birth, and blacksmithing. But she was really about creation, right? Blacksmithing. It was really important back then. There is also a Saint Brigid of Kildare, who is a Christian saint who may or may not have been a real person. There is some debate about this. Saint Brigid's story is that she was the founder of an abbey in the town of Kildare. Do you guys know what an abbey is? Theo knows. What is it? Oh, okay. Well, and yes, nuns live at an abbey. That's where you go to become a nun, right? And she happened to share many characteristics with the goddess Brigid. Is connected to miracles and symbols and pagan folklore as well. And so the story that I'm telling today has it appears in many sources. Sometimes it's told with the goddess Brigid, sometimes it's told with Saint Brigid. But both figures often have a lot of the same symbols, including a magical cloak. Long ago in Ireland, a few wealthy landowners owned great tracts of fertile land, while the poor were forced up into the rocky hills to eke out a living from the sparse soil. One year, the crops went bad, and the poor could barely scrape together an onion or a carrot for their supper. Brigid went to one of the richest landholders and said, "The harvest is grim this year, and the peasants need your help." The wealthy landowner replied, Brigid, I'll think on it, but in truth, if the people would only work harder, they surely could fend for themselves. A few weeks passed and the situation grew worse. Brigid went again to the wealthy landowner and said, "The peasants have no food. They've taken to the hills to eat shamrocks and grass. What will you do for them?" "Now, Brigid," said the landowner, "don't get too pushy. I'm a busy man. Why is it you're here talking to me? When you should be talking to the peasants about what they can do for themselves. I've got no time for this. Now be gone with you." It's a really bold way to talk to a goddess. Like if you legit knew somebody was a goddess. This guy's bold. What do you think's going to happen? The world's going to explode. Wow. Well, his world's going to explode, right? Another week passed, and the situation became grave. Brigid went again to the wealthy landholder, and in a rage she cried, "You've done nothing to help, and now the children are starving. I demand that you give land to the poor." "Well, Brigid," said the landowner, "it couldn't be that bad. I mean, you don't look like you're starved, and you don't look like you're lacking any warm clothes. 'Tis a fine wool cloak you wear on your back. Let it not be said that I'm a stingy man. Here's what we'll do. You go out into the plain, choose any spot, and spread your white cloak on the ground. The plot that it covers, I'll donate that to the poor." "Tax-free?" asked Brigid. "All right, tax-free," said the landowner, "but don't ask me for anything more." So that day, Brigid and her 3 sisters went out to the very center of that fertile plain. Each took hold of the corner of her white cloak. Brigid said, "All right now, girls, pull it taut." And so they did. And then Brigid cried, "Now take a step backward." Each of them took a step backward, one to the north, one to the south, one to the east, and one to the west. And as they did, the cloak expanded. Remember, it's a magical cloak. Then Brigid cried, "All right, keep walking," and they did. And as they did so, the cloak continued to expand until it covered the whole expanse of the plain. That afternoon, as usual, the landowner went up to his tower to look out and survey his lands. At first glance, it looked as if snow had fallen. Then he saw that the rocks above were bare. "The cloak," he whispered, falling to his knees. Then he saw that the cloak, he whispered, falling to his knees, now seeing providence at work in the matter. When he saw Brigid striding up the walkway, he leaned out the window and cried, "Mercy, Brigid, I'll keep my word. The whole of the plain belongs to the poor, and I'll throw in 100 bags of oat seed, that they might prosper by it." "That's fine for tomorrow," said Brigid, "but what will you do today?" "For today," said the landholder. Why, a feast for today, a feast for all." "What sort of feast?" asked Brigid. "Why, a feast of stews and roasts and compotes and mashes and stuffings and jellies and cakes," replied the landholder. "And bags to take home?" asked Brigid. "Why, of course, bags to take home," assured the landholder. "Very well then," said Brigid, "I'll spread the word." "Aye, Brigid, I'm sure you will, and I don't mind saying that if you spread the word as efficiently as you spread the cloak, not a soul will miss this feast." Now, one of the symbols Brigid has, and St. Brigid also has, is what's called a Brigid's cross. These are usually made from straw or reeds, but we're not in the countryside of Ireland, so I made mine with paper. And if you would like to make one too, the supplies are going to be down in Fellowship Hall. So at coffee service, you can make your own Brigid's cross, and you can keep it for protection. And that's the end of today's story. We're going to sing you guys out and go to your classes.
Each week, we bring our joys and celebrations, sorrows and concerns with us to this community. The love of this community supports us through the challenges and the triumphs of life. Now is the time in our service when we connect with one another by sharing our sorrows and concerns. In our community, we send healing thoughts to Deanna Knapp, wife of choir director Joel Knapp, who is recovering from successful surgery to treat lung cancer. And this morning, we send continued healing toward a young friend battling Hodgkin's lymphoma. We worry over planning challenges for a trip outside the country. And we hold concern for friends overwhelmed as caregivers who are having trouble finding time and nurturing for themselves. We hold these concerns with tenderness and compassion. May they be lighter because they are shared. As a community, we also share our joys and celebrations with one another. In our community, we welcome new member Johari Hunt, who signed the membership book on February 1st. This morning, we celebrate the effort and focus that was demonstrated by members of the congregation in creating a vision for community outreach last Sunday at our Summit 2.0. Good work, y'all. And we hold the joy and anticipation of Mardi Gras festivities next weekend. We are grateful to feel better after a nasty stomach bug. And we celebrate the outstanding group of volunteers who join each week in the chaos closet, and without whom what we do on Sundays would never be possible. Amen. We hold these joys with gladness and celebration. May they be magnified because they are shared. With many joys and concerns remaining unspoken in our hearts and minds, please join me in a spirit of prayer and mindful attention with these words from the Reverend Jen Johnson. Spirit of life and love, holy within and among us, open our hearts and minds to all that is possible in this season of liminality, this in-between season, sometimes winter, sometimes nearly spring, not quite one nor the other. Beneath the crust of earth, seeds and bulbs lay in store. Some crocus and daffodil have dared to reach out, sending forth the first signs of life, braving to become the next iteration of self. A new stem in search of the surface, in search of the sun. On the forsythia and redbuds, petals curl into themselves, swelling into uncertain buds, waiting for the optimal conditions of light and warmth and rain to unfold into their potential for beauty and delight. On the bare branches of maple, oak, and elm, tiny leaves are invisibly budding, readying themselves for their debut, a new wardrobe for a new season. Spirit of life and love, sacred flame within, we too are waiting to grow again. Like perennials and deciduous trees, we don't grow along a single trajectory. From infancy through childhood to the full bloom of adulthood and the wider unfolding of elderhood. Rather, we grow anew, year upon year, in seasons and cycles. In the cold and dark of winter, real and metaphorical, we hunker down, seek shelter and stillness, conserve our energy so that new vitality can germinate. In this liminal season, we are waiting for signs of longer light, lasting warmth, and quenching rains, waiting to grow anew. What new growth is budding in you, reaching tentatively for the surface and the sun, readying itself to make its debut and adorn the world with beauty and delight? Can you feel it? May we find hope in these new beginnings. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
Scrolling down, here we go. Sorry, I had to re-scroll down, so here we go. Here it is. Okay, the reading from today is from Ireland. Here we go. The Irish poet Nidizak Arya Aib, I think that's the pronunciation, but I'm not exactly sure. They were commissioned this poem was commissioned in 2021 by the Irish Department of Foreign Affairs and the Museum of Literature Ireland in celebration of St. Brigid's Day. Imbolc, an invocation. Guardian of the fawn, brightest of the flame, awaken us at dawn, O exalted, hear your name. Come glinting in the hearth, coal lashes lined with soot, steel flint omega arches, fleet mare so light of foot. Milk flecked o'er the mouth, skin tight, sweet-lipped foam, suckled at the reddening ears, corners of your cloak. Glistening by a winch above, the veiled amnion of well hold us, head neath water, that we might breathe again. Stay, winter, light the torch in dark where life is forged. In the belly, draw breath, draw rain.
The First Unitarian Church of St. Louis strives to be a welcoming congregation, inspiring lives of loving kindness and integrity by nurturing spirituality, building community, and advancing justice. Your contributions support the mission and ministry of this congregation in the St. Louis region and beyond. This morning's offering will now be received. Last Sunday, more than 30 people gathered to participate in our Community Outreach and Congregational Engagement Summit 2.0. It was so exciting to see people engaging in this process, from those who showed up in the fall and those who showed up last month. It's an exciting process. For your participation, for your gifts today and every day, thank you. It was the beginning of February when my family left Connecticut for the North Carolina mountains. Snow had fallen, and in the deep winter freeze remained on the ground. It had warmed up just enough that a recent storm turned into freezing rain, and the foot of snow was now covered with a crust of ice. Our last day in New England, my brother and I skimmed across the top of the snow as though skating. Had we fallen through, we would have reached beneath ice and snow to solid ground. It would have felt cold and hard. Had you told us that even then, beneath those layers of winter, the ground had warmed up enough that the bulbs were waking up and beginning to stretch in their garden burrows, we might not have believed you. Thus is the nature of Imbolc. Just when we think we cannot take another gray and dismal January day, the month turns and February arrives. The 1st and 2nd of February has several names: Imbolc, St. Brigid's Day, Groundhog Day, just to name a few. One interpretation of Old Irish Imbolc means in the belly, referring to the livestock that were pregnant during this period in the year. Whatever the name, whichever day you claim, at the beginning of February, we observe what is called a cross quarter, the midpoint between a solstice and an equinox. In this case, winter solstice and spring equinox. Fun fact, because the Gregorian calendar doesn't line up exactly with the cycles of Earth and Sun and Moon, the dates for the solstice and equinoxes fluctuate. Thus, this year, the exact lunar cross quarter between winter solstice and spring equinox is today, February 4th. However you observe this time, we celebrate that the shortest, dimmest days of the year are behind us. Hallelujah. And from here on, the days will be longer and brighter and maybe even warmer. If Satani Phil was right, we will this year. Chilled to the bones and slogging through short, dismal days, Celtic ancestors in the Northern Hemisphere anticipated spring, saying prayers to Brigid, goddess of fertility and fire, creativity and craftsmanship, healing and home. She was known as the goddess of, well, you name it. Refugees, dairymaids, physicians. They prayed that their food stores would hold out these last weeks of winter, that their fires would stay lit, and that their livestock birthing season would go well. Waiting for spring to break upon them, inspired by the goddess, ancestors nurtured their inner flames, tending the domestic fires, forging tools for the planting and the harvest, creating histories and lessons to help them remember who they were through song and poetry. Just as the earth was pregnant with spring, so too were the people, their bellies full of hope and swelling with each extra minute of daylight. There are many ways to celebrate Imbolc, from weaving dolls out of oat stalks to churning butter to setting bonfires to light the night. Looking ahead, the people wondered, what seeds are we planting? What should we plant? What are we incubating, forging, creating? What grows within us that we can nurture into being? Goddess of fire, Brigid is the goddess of the hearth, of home and motherhood and animal husbandry. She is the goddess of the forge, of blacksmiths and craftsmanship and justice. She is the goddess of creativity, that inner spark of poetry and prophecy and healing. With Brigid, the fires of inspiration and the fires of the home and forge are seen as identical. Inside Brigid burns the sacred fire of truth, which does not burn, but heals. As Christianity overtook Celtic paganism in Ireland, the folk tales of Brigid became conflated with the stories of St. Brigid, a Christian holy woman who may or may not have existed, but is credited with founding Kildare Abbey, a double monastery with wings for women and men. It was founded in 5 CE. Brigid was known for her propensity to give away possessions, her own and others, which got her kicked out of many a home. Her goal, to help the poor and destitute. You all heard the story for all ages, how Goddess Brigid, known for her compassion to the poor, for victims of violence and illness, spread her cloak and won the valley for the people. Saint Brigid also had a magical cloak. And when she needed land for her monastery, she went to the king, who dismissed her, much as the king in this story for all ages. And he told her, "You could have as much land as you can cover with your cloak." You know what happened next. St. Brigid opened her cloak, and it covered a vast tract of land, upon which was built Kildare Abbey. Whose story is it? In modern Ireland, there is no distinction between the Celtic goddess and the Christian saint. Anticipating spring, pregnant with possibility, people seek blessings of good luck and prosperity from Brigid, praying for the community, for crops and animals in the coming year. Celebrating St. Brigid's Day, the people are fertile with the spark of possibility, aglow with new beginnings. On this cross quarter, anticipating spring, what sparks are growing within you? So is Imbolc, so is St. Brigid's Day, a celebration of a Christian saint or a Celtic goddess? Friends, you know the answer to this one. Yes. In the world of both and, the holy day mashup of Imbolc and St. Brigid's Day and Groundhog's Day, they all ask the same question: how long till spring? How do we thrive in this liminal season? How do we nurture new growth and new beginnings? How do we prepare for what comes next? If we spread our cloak upon the ground, how far does it stretch? And what will we do with such largesse? And where does the fire of inspiration call us? And yet, Ireland didn't recognize St. Brigid's Day as a national holiday until, any guesses? Anybody know? 2023. Last year. And this year they are celebrating the 1,500 year anniversary of St. Brigid's death. You know, I watched a movie recently about the minimization of women's roles. What was it? There was a lot of pink. It'll come to me. Recognizing St. Brigid's Day as a national holiday, Ireland acknowledges the value of women as role models and teachers for all people. At the launch of the national holiday in 2023, feminist and LGBTQ activist Albie Smith said, quote, "Pagan goddess or Catholic saint, what we know of Brigid through myth and legend and history is that she was a remarkable, multi-talented woman, a visionary, a healer, a warrior, a rebel, and a very astute strategist. In short, we know and imagine Brigid as a powerful, generous, inclusive, and compassionate leader who forged ahead, intrepid and undaunted by the challenges before her, with a strong vision of a more humane and equal world." St. Brigid's Day is unlikely to become a national holiday here in the U.S., but we do have another recognition and other recognitions that it took far too long to achieve. Next month is Women's History Month. This month is Black History Month. And so for the beginning of Black History Month, I want to tell you about another woman, a multifaceted woman who was powerful, generous, inclusive, and compassionate, who forged ahead, intrepid and undaunted, who had a strong vision for a humane and equal world. This woman was Black Unitarian Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. Born free in 1825, Harper was an abolitionist, suffragist, poet, and writer, teacher, and public speaker. The fire of creativity burned within her. At 20, Harper published her first book of poetry. The fire of home and hearth burned within her. At 25, she became a teacher, instructing students in the domestic arts. The fire of justice burned within her. At 26, she became involved with the movement to abolish slavery. Poetry, home and hearth, justice. Like Brigid, Harper had to encounter misogynistic views of women that ignored and dismissed her. Like Brigid, Harper insisted on taking up space, not with a cloak, but with her body. In 1858, Harper refused to give up her seat on a Philadelphia trolley, 97 years before Rosa Parks. Harper was a writer, a mother, an activist who used the fire of these gifts to plant the seeds of liberation. She wrote, quote, "We are all bound up together in one great bundle of humanity, and society cannot trample on the weakest and feeblest of its members without receiving the curse in its own soul." Harper had a vision of a world where all races and all genders were equal. where people could learn and thrive together, building a world of hope and freedom for all. She transformed the fire within her into messages to end slavery and earn suffrage for all. She used her power and her breath as an orator to give life to a future of possibility. You might say she breathed fire. To breathe fire isn't about being a dragon, incinerating and obliterating without control. It's about the truth blazing inside, burning your throat, laboring to be brought into existence through your voice. And when you finally speak them, release them, these words of truth, the world ignites. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper ignited her audiences with the fires of justice and invited them then, invited us now to ask, how are we working for liberation? For the twin flames of equality and justice. Our seeds are within, laboring, germinating, and growing forth. As a congregation, our work to identify a congregation-wide social action project has sparked participation across all facets of the congregation. The seeds we nurture are the products of the strength and creativity and prophecy of this process. Beneath the layer of cold and snow, awakening from apathy and hibernation, the first tendrils are reaching up, reaching out, lured by the soft, warm fires of new beginnings. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper wrote, "In the new era of your life, bring love for hate and peace for strife. Friends, spring is coming." A year after we moved to North Carolina, my family had settled into life in the mountains. Spring came early there. You might find yourself in shorts in February, but it was also fickle. And so it was that second year. The warm breezes and soft sunlight lured plants above ground. The daffodils and tulips burst forth, but most spectacular was the large weeping cherry tree in the front yard, draping shameless curtains of pink and white flowers from crown to ground. Yet just as quickly, the breezes turned frigid and then dumped a foot of snow. There, amid the winter white world, stood the weeping cherry, her branches a riot of pastel abundance, dripping down to kiss the snow. Strength amid struggle, life renewed and undaunted. In celebration of the feminine divine on this cross quarter, please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, number 51, Lady of the Season's Laughter. Frances Ellen Watkins Harper wrote, "If we have had no past, it is well for us to look hopefully to the future, for the shadows bear the promise of a brighter coming day. Spring is coming. May the fierceness of the fire be yours. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace." Please stay for the postlude, and when it finishes as your final act of worship, please turn and greet your neighbor.